People who have had encounters with UFOs or aliens. What's your story?
Oh shit. Here we go again.
Okay, let's go. Spit!
Serious reply, but not especially gripping or thrilling. I was about 13, and my dad was in the backyard and calls out to me, "Hey Coffee barks, do you want to see a UFO?" I go outside, and he points up to the sky. I see a little shining dot that is a silvery metallic color. It seems like it's far away, but there's really nothing nearby to compare it to. It swoops around like crazy in the sky, making hairpin turns, and acting like it has very little mass. It's also fading in and out of his visibility. I watch it for a few minutes, and I'm actually starting to get a little bored when it finally disappears. Both me and my dad look at each other. He kind of shrugs and says, "Well, that was weird." And I say, "Yeah." I go back inside the house and go back to playing video games. Aliens can sense chill. They're big fans of it. Hey, Gazerks, want to abduct and chill tonight? Hey, Gazerks, want to watch Earth and chill tonight?
Run.
That's like my dad when I told about the UFO I saw. It was out on the horizon over the ocean. It could have been a boat. I know it was too high to be in the water. Plus the light was red. Anyway, I got home from my job, giving out samples of fudge on a boardwalk at the Jersey Shore, and told my dad what happened, since he's into UFOs and the unexplained etc. So he said, "Wow, you sure it wasn't a boat?" Well, okay. Are you working tomorrow? Nana and Pop are gonna be here. Me and another classmate saw some glowing V-shaped objects in the sky. They were on a triangle formation and remained immobile for a while until they vanished when cloud passed under them. This was back in the 90s in Mexico. There's a name for these. And I saw them myself. Me and two friends were eating an N out in a parking lot when we all saw three orange lights in a horizontal triangle shape above the building. They were moving around in a strange way, just holding still, then floating up and down and around, but still connected to each other. Then, the three lights broke off into a bunch of smaller lights and then just vanished. Years later, Vertical Bar saw someone here mention seeing the same thing and knew the name of it. I looked up triangle lights UFO, and sure enough, it was exactly what we'd all seen. Saw one V-shaped object, metallic gray. It reminded me of hang glitter. It was over me, not very high, early 90s. Near Puebla, in February. Sounds like a flock of geese needed an update. Radioactive geese. Did it block out the sky behind it? Was it three lights or three lights on a craft? They were pretty high on the sky, and I'm not sure if they were glowing or reflecting the sunlight. What made them so bizarre is how they remained immobile and in that triangle formation. So this is a weird story. Like 10 years ago, I was chilling with my friend at my mother's house when I hear my mother calling my aunt to come upstairs. I came upstairs not knowing why my mom called me, and when I walk in my room, she's standing in front my window looking outside. It was a sunny day, beautiful blue sky, and the sun was out. But then I noticed what my mom was looking at. It looked like some kind of a fireball. It kinda looked like a second sun, but smaller and not that far away as the sun is. Before I realized what I was looking at, I was a bit shook, and before I could call my friend to come walk with us, it just kinda imploded and was gone in a second. Never saw something like that again. Never knew what I saw. I was a child eating cereal watching my Saturday morning cartoons, turned right to casually look out of our window for a second, and turned back to the TV. Then I realized something was in the distant sky just hovering. Looked a bit like a grey disk with a few bits attached to it, so quickly turned back to the window to look at it. The object suddenly shot across the horizon and I never saw it again. Based on how far it was, it must have been moving stupidly fast to do this. Always get a weird tingle in my neck when I talk about this story. The tingle is the alien probe stopping you from saying too much. Serious response. It was summer 2012. I was a young pilot out for a late afternoon flight over the Cherokee National Forest in East TN. Flying along at roughly 5,000 feet. Look down along the top of a mountain ridge as the sun is getting low at the horizon. So beautiful. Notice a bright light flying along the top of the ridge at a high rate of speed. I think to myself that I'm lucky enough to see a fighter jet today, as this aircraft appears to be flying close a military training route. I glance at the VFR sectional just to verify I won't be flying through that route if TH is noticeable military traffic in the area. Turn my aircraft parallel with the route and continue to watch this jet. Jet just suddenly stops over a dam as it is cruising rapidly over the mountains. Like just fucking stops FR at least a 300 knot cruise to a standstill instantly. Dafuck. Turn the nose of my aircraft toward the thing, cause you know, dafuck is going on here. Still a few miles away. The thing is shining bright white in the orange sky of an East TN sunset, sitting still about 500 feet above this dam. As I get within 3 miles of the thing, it shoots straight the fuck up like a rocket out of hell so fast. Ellen's go nothing on this bitch. Yep, I don't know what dafuck that was, but my ass is going home. Only told my wife. Years later, filed a MUFON report cause Elle saw that was a thing. Now you guys know. Still fly airplanes. Never seen anything else. Weird shit, homie. The thing is, shining bright white in the orange sky of an East TN sunset sounds like a song lyric. Smoke is after sunset is a weird vibe. I get a danger sense like no other sometimes out there. I've spent a lot of time out there. There's been a few times where suddenly it just becomes quiet. Not even insects making noise. The air is still, and it is noticeable because it's never quiet out there. Nothing ever is, but I've never had it happen anywhere else. East TN can be spooky manhap. Doesn't that usually mean something big is coming your way? That's what I've heard it means, when you're in the woods and everything goes quiet, but I'm not an expert, so I can't judge. Not necessarily big, but something has definitely spooked the local critters enough they all went quiet to avoid getting eaten, like that big dumb human stumbling through the woods. I was camping in rural Missouri and had to piss in the middle of the night.
Run.
I crawled out of the tent and stood up in a blaze of moonlight. It was a full moon and just so fucking bright everywhere, but everything was silver and black. No colors of leaves on trees or our tent. The woods were eerily quiet, and the hair on the back of my neck stood up. A voice in my head said, "It's the perfect night to be abducted by aliens," and I quickly decided I could surely wait till morning to pee. They did a study in England, and the presence of a predator will make the animals wary, but the presence of a human makes them go hide in their burrows, etc. We are the apex predatory. Could be things are noticing you. But I have been in Tennessee after sunset and it definitely has a weird vibe. It shoots straight the fuck up like a rocket out of hell so fast. Ellen's got nothing on this bitch. This cracked me up. Kinda sounds similar to the Big O'Hare sighting in 2006, where the thing was just hovering over the airport and then shot straight up like a rocket, even punching a hole in the clouds as it did. It seems like there's a lot of stories where people see things just like this, a light shooting across the sky and then shooting straight up. Which makes me think that those stories can't all have either been fake or something else that people thought was a UFO. When hundreds of people from all different places tell the exact same story, it usually means there's actually truth behind it. I think you really saw a thing. Not sure what, but something. I saw something odd. That is for sure. No human could have sustained the forces present in the maneuvers I witnessed this thing perform. Again, I'm not saying aliens. But it sure was hella weird. I've never seen anything like it since, and I have been lucky enough to spend a lot of time in the sky. A light shooting across the sky. I remember seeing something like this in high school. I had just finished a babysitting job at the parents were walking me home with their dog. We saw a bright light go across the sky and figured it was a shooting star. It looked like it was right over the tops of the trees at the playground across the street. I mean, the Navy or Pentagon or whatever confirmed the existence of UFOs last year. I always find these stories hilarious cause I imagine aliens flying across the cockpit because of the sudden stop of motion. It's just an alien dad trying to teach his alien son how to drive stick, and he's doing really bad.
Run.
Okay Glorp, now switch gears. We are coming up to our turn at this mountain ridge. Glorp slip shifts, freaks out and hits the brakes. Alien dad has his arm stretched across Glorp. Glorp has grist. Glorp, the heck were you doing? Great, now there's a human watching. It'll take us up, and we can practice tomorrow. I'm glad that the primary alien religion also has a messiah named Christ, but that his first name is still alien, last name to Glorpus Christ. Foot slipped off the clutch. Well, that's kinda sweet. Aliens willing to have their transmissions destroyed, all in the name of teaching their young to fly stick. Just like us. Alien pilot, seatbelt, check.
Okay.
Alien cheek slap against the window. John, you fucking cunt. Stop doing that. If you do that shit one more time, I'm gonna fucking kill you.
What? What the fuck?
Maybe they are moving and stopping just like our aircraft, but we are observing it from a different dimension. Or maybe the entities controlling them are in an upper dimension. Like we use a mouse to move the arrow on the computer screen. With a slide of our hand we can stop the cursor on what we want to highlight, then blast it right off the page. Someone in the second dimension would observe that as some crazy physics-defying UFO. IDK. Just trying to explain these stories to myself to make it make sense. Could also be unmanned like a drone or something. Yeah, no. 4D space bugs controlling a drone with their limited edition Mario Kart Wii remote are cooler. They make their own pocket gravity field. That's why they can move like that, right? To whatever is inside it would feel like you aren't moving at all. Rather the space around you is moving fast. Isn't that like Star Trek warp travel? I think that's how Simon Pegg's character described it in the original reboot. If there is any truth that some of these objects and sightings are in actuality under control of alien entities not from our world, then we really cannot apply human thinking to them. We have absolutely no real idea of how they think or what their motivations are. You can assume they evolved from less complex organisms. Meaning they would likely think similar to us, or at least used to.
Run.
Because the way we think is mostly the same as any other species fighting over limited resources. Evolutionary baggage, as Sagan put it. Or is careless, like a teenager taking dad's Ferrari for a joyride through Jurassic Park. We should probably not shoot any of them down then. Imagine if an alien nuked at Civic with a 17-year-old in it, because they thought it might be a war vessel, although Civics can't move at 300 knots, so who knows. We study ants, but do not do so with stealth. To ants, we are beyond their comprehension. If a caveman of 100,000 years ago came upon a nuclear submarine, it would appear as something magical to them. Perhaps the same applies to some UFOs, if they are indeed real. Then why would they run away as soon as we get close enough to identify them? Say happy cake day. If the very small percentage of unexplained sightings are indeed aliens, or craft under alien control, there is no way we could answer that without a great deal more data. We could not know how aliens think, or what motives they would have for visiting. If you or I were alien beings capable of rational thought, and you or I as aliens had observed human behavior firsthand, would you want to come near to humans? I'm just running with the thought that they view us as being so insignificant as to not need stealth. Then why would they care if we saw them? I'm not saying contact, but if they can make those ships, then over the years of theoretical observation, they understand that there won't be first contact with a Cessna. So then why run? I definitely don't believe that we have ever had aliens visit the Earth. But if they did, I imagine it would either be completely incognito, or they would just make actual contact. Not this wishy-washy stuff that allows believers to hold out hope and make up any explanation that will suffice. Or simply doesn't give a fuck, because we would never catch them, and they'd probably know a thing or two about how to fuck us up, yet they only kick around nowhere places, like they are concerned about being seen, but then do so in a way that allows them to be seen. One theory, the aliens are trying for a slow reveal. They allow us to sight them on an increasingly frequent basis, getting more and more of the population on board with the idea of alien visitations. That way, when first contact is finally made 50 years from now, the world doesn't lose its collective shit. Profit. Intelligence that is different will come up with something different and possibly or probably useful. Animal preserve. Our system is surrounded by a wall of fiery plasma. That seems fucked up, but maybe it's normal. It could be a fence. Good chance it was one of the early F-35s. Those bastards can appear stop on a diamond hover. It's wild. In 2016 or so, I was in an A320 as a passenger heading to Florida one day. I look out the window and see one less than a few hundred yards away coming to what seemed like a dead stop. It appeared to hover for a second and then blasted out of there quicker than I could say hey look. About that time the pilot came on the intercom, and after letting out an audible sigh said, "Ladies and gentlemen, please fasten your seatbelts." And the plane pitched up hard and fast as he tried to dodge the wake from that F-35. Alrighty. I saw a jellyfish cargo net thing. I was driving home and took a shortcut through a residential area. Was driving at around 15 miles per hour. Look up and see this thing. It was very high in the sky. Yet I could make out all the details. So I'd imagine this thing had to be pretty fucking big for to be able to see it in such detail from the ground. It looked like a cargo net, or one of those orange plastic barrier net things you see around construction sites or landscaping jobs. Only it looked like it was made from the same gelatinous pink material jellyfish are made out of. It was moving around in a very organic way, like it was alive. The light was catching it in weird places, making it sparkle and glisten in the sky. It was just up there wriggling around. LT wasn't falling. Wasn't gliding. It was just sorta dancing like it was underwater. Flowing around and whatnot. Don't know what it was. But I've never seen anything like it. Jellyfish Skynet. Did you film it with your phone? I was listening to a podcast, Mysterious Universe, a while ago, and they were talking about sky jellyfish. There was a guy in the 20s and 30s who was chasing these things in planes. One report was a guy in car was being chased. All sorts of stories, and star jelly could be remains of these things. Very cool. Made me think about all this footage about strange lights that move. That doesn't look quite like a craft, more alive, could be jellyfish type creatures in the upper atmosphere. It's just fun to think about. I like to think the world is far more stranger than we think. I've seen UFOs 3 times. But jellyfish Skynet is my favorite because of the organic factor. It wasn't a metal object. It wasn't a plane in weird light. It wasn't a satellite. It was a translucent pink mass that behaved like it was alive. It wasn't scary. It was just very surreal. I will have to look into the podcast. I have explained jellyfish Skynet to someone recently, and they claimed they had known others who have seen similar things. It could be an undiscovered organism, or it could be an ultra rare weather phenomena like ball lightning. But it's real. I believe in jellyfish Skynet. These threads are like a Reddit campfire. They abducted me, and then they transformed me into a pickle. Funniest shit that ever happened to me. They turned me into a newt. A newt got better. Totally serious response. I was 9 or 10, so summer of 1982 or 1983. I lived in Albuquerque near Spain and Moon. On occasion I tell this story. I mention the area because I'm convinced someone else had to see it. I was playing in friend's backyard and I spot what I thought was just a more silver airplane pretty high in the sky and didn't think much of it. But keep watching it out of the corner of my eye and it takes like a dramatic nosedive towards the earth. Not right at us, but to our south. And I was convinced it was going to crash into our school, a Sooner Elementary. My friends saw this too. We couldn't see the school, but expected to hear a crash, but nothing. We got on our bikes and tried to ride over to the school, and then the object came floating silently and slowly just 2 hours east from south to north just over Moon Street. I could see, if clear as day, saucer shape that was 20 to 30 feet long like brushed aluminum, a few portals or windows along the edge. We sat stunned in the middle of the street just watching it float past us. We expected to see a lot of other people watching as well, but there was no one. Back in the day there was a vacant lot at Moon and Camino del Sol, and when the object reached there it stopped. Our view was obscured by houses, so we didn't see it land. But we did a huge amount of dust go into the air, so we assumed it landed. We rode to the lot, but slowly, not really sure if we were doing the right thing. When we got there, there was still a ton of dust in the air, but object was gone. We walked and rode around the lot for a long time looking for anything that would indicate what we'd seen, but found nothing. We both watched the news that night expecting the entire city to be talking about it, but there wasn't a word. He was afraid to tell his parents, but Vertical Bar told mine. They said I had probably just seen someone goofing around in a small airplane. Looking back, I don't know what it was. My brain wants to tell me that 2 9-year-olds convinced each other into a hallucination, but that memory is as clear as any I've ever had. There's a story with some famous UFC fighters, George St. Pierre and Rashad Evans, seeing a UFO in the East Mountains. Used to live in the area, but never saw something like that. I did see a red light streak across the sky above Albuquerque in a split second. I also saw a strange orange light about the size of the moon that was stationary, but became elongated, and back to a ball, then disappeared. Also above Albuquerque. A year ago, I was in Midland, Ontario on vacation. It was night, and my boyfriend's stepmom called us outside to look at something. We ran out to the lake and saw a bright orange light, very very high up in the distance. It was so bright it was lighting up the lake. At first we thought it was a flare, except we felt very uneasy about that theory, since it stayed in the sky for at least 40 minutes, and then another orange light appeared. It hovered below the other spot for a bit. They got really close and then vanished. That was my first and only encounter witnessing a UFO. Many other people on the beach saw it as well. It was incredible. I sincerely believe that this happened. What kills me though is that here is this extremely unusual phenomenon that is not fleeting. It was in the sky for at least 40 minutes. Many other people saw it as well, and nobody took a video. In this day and age when literally everybody is carrying a video camera in their pocket, and we still don't get any great videos of UFOs. It kind of feeds into my skeptical side. 73L Goblin AO15H exactly. Where are the decent videos at? But also, ever tried filming the moon at night with your phone? Looks like a tiny blurry white dot. A small light in the sky doesn't not show up easily, yet again you would be able to see it move. But yeah, doesn't explain why no one has just taken a video yet. 48 Nobo JR14H. I have similar thoughts that also feed my skeptical side, yet I also know that if I had taken a video of what was described with my phone, that it would come out as two shaky blurry lights against a blank black background, and that as a result I probably wouldn't show it to anyone but a few friends. Everyone may be carrying a video camera around in their pocket these days, but they are ill suited to capturing what usually comes down to moving lights at a great distance in a dark sky. There is a road on the way to my camp deep in the Adirondack Mountains that has a dangerous dip and curve. When I was a kid riding with my gram, she took it a bit quick, then braked at the worst spot and slid in the gravel off the road.
Run.
She didn't hit anything, but man, I remembered it. As a teen driver I always slowed while the fuck down approaching that spot because I remembered how scary it was. Once when I was riding at night with my sister, I told her firmly to slow down as she approached the curve. And her headlights suddenly cut out. Both of them.
Run.
She came to a dead stop as we couldn't see anything. We both screamed as she was stopping because it felt like a car accident with no impact. That kind of real fear. It is scary dark in the woods at night with no moon. She turned her lights off and then back on again, and they worked fine. We wigged out a little bit, but what can you do? We continued onward running on adrenaline and nerves. A year or so later I was telling my friend the story on our way up, and about 20 yards past the spot my fucking headlights turned off. He got pretty mad at me and told me to stop fucking with him, but both my hands were firmly on the steering wheel and he knew it. I turned them off and on again, and they came back on. Rinse and repeat, and it becomes a creepy joke I don't even bother telling people about. About once every 25 trips to camp this will happen late at night. I now take that curve at 15 to 20 miles per hour and piss off every redneck in town who has the misfortune of being stuck behind me on the way back into the woods from a town Balm 36 now, and it happens less with my car that has lights that stay on all the time, but WTF, L can't explain it, and it is so crazy. I don't even bother sharing the story anymore. I assume it is like a spirit telling me heads up, and that I need to look out when I'm at that spot. Related to the alien theme, the property behind said scary curve is owned by cousins. And the one behind that is owned by cousins' cousins. That is how the Adirondacks works. We all know each other's business. I know the woods well, and there are no houses, no businesses and no logging going on. Where the properties meet far into the woods there is an open field. You can sorta see it from a few miles away when coming down a big hill. Mountain foothills are crazy. Every now and then you can see for miles, and then you're buried in dark woods again. When heading home from camp with my sister on a late Sunday night, I saw light in said field. A lot of light. There is no electricity there. No way to get it there. This is the late 90s or early 2000s. No cell phones in that area yet. Still isn't any service. Whatever was down there made so much light that the sky above it, that it looked like a small city had been erected. A glow hung in the clouds above the field. We were like, WTF. There is literally nothing where that light is coming from. We thought maybe fire. So we slowed down when the road got close to the woods alongside where the light should have been. We got out and creeped a little deeper. There was a goddamn circus tent. Like fucking killer clowns from outer space. It was a huge revival style white canvas deal with lights coming from inside only. No light outside at all, but it was bright. We raced out to there fast, but couldn't explain why it scared us so much. It just felt wrong. The next day we called cousins up to ask what the hell they were doing in the woods at 2 AM with a white tent, and they had no explanation. They laughed at the scared city folk and told us we were nuts. Maybe they are secretly cooking meth. Or maybe the aliens meet 50 yards from where my headlights always turn off on their own. But either way, I'm staying in my car, no matter what on that stretch of road. I was on board of a large catamaran on Titicaca Lake. In the dining room. Saw a formation of luminous flying saucers over the water. Took pictures and video. Reviewed the pictures, they were perfect. Turned around to tell someone. Noticed the same formation of lights on the ceiling. Realized that the UFOs were reflections on the windows. Still went showing the pictures to several people, and most of them were certain that this was UFOs. I was like 10, back in 1986, and sitting in the back seat of the car, staring up and out the rear window at the sky. I saw something strange and just watched it as we drove, until it was out of sight. Mentioned to my friends that I saw something weird. Friend's little brother says me too, and starts to describe it. I told him stop, don't say anything else. I had us both, in different rooms, draw what we saw. Our pictures matched up in detail perfectly. LT was a round disc with what looked like 3 smaller round discs behind it, and it looked like they were attached by some type of line. Chain, hose, who knows? Technically it's a UFO, because even today TVE never seen anything similar to it, even on Google searches. UFO #1, daytime. I was around 11 I believe, I don't remember. Anyway, I woke up one morning and saw that it was a nice day out, so I went to look out my bedroom window. Right down the road in broad daylight was a black half-oval shaped UFO, flat bottom, round top, slowly floating away. I watched it until my view of it was obscured by the trees. This was before cell phones, and I think the only camera we had was this old antique thing. UFO #2, nighttime. Long story short, I saw multicolored lights off through the trees as my parents were driving down our road to our house, was sitting in the back. We went around a turn, and then up our driveway. I got out to go look, and the lights were gone. UFO #3, daytime. I was standing out on the deck smoking a cigarette, and looking up at the trees. A metallic sphere that seemed to be up about the same height that the planes would fly went absolutely hauling across the sky. UFO #4, nighttime. I was on my way home from work, and as I was driving past a field down the road from my house, there was a very bright light hovering above the field not far from the road. I stopped to look, and put my window down. It made no noise, and did nothing except be a light hovering there. Another car came from the other direction, and stopped to look too. I watched it for a bit, until it started slowly floating away, and then I continued home. This was the era of flip phones, so trying to take any kind of picture of it would have been completely useless. Possible abduction. I woke up one day and had this absolutely horrid smelling orange liquid leaking out of my navel with some fresh blood as well. I've never smelled anything like it, or had that happen before or since. All of my UFO sightings were either from my old house or right down the road from it. I live, D, in South Central PA, if anyone is wondering. I've had several very blatant paranormal experiences as well, which includes seeing balls of light up close on 2 occasions, but I'll leave those out of the response, since the question was about UFOs. Sounds aliens are following you, since you were a child. You are the chosen one. My experience happened on January 1st, 2020, figures. Anyways, my bedroom was on the 2nd floor, so nothing was covering my windows. I also have this irrational fears of aliens. So I woke up about 3 AM. Nothing new for me, I tend to wake up in the night and stay up for a few hours. Anyways, my bed is right by the window, so the first thing I'll always do is look out into the sky. Irrational fear, remember, and that particular night from the distance I see something in the sky. LT's not weird to see planes, so I assumed it was that point. I watched it fly for a minute until it stopped in midair and then started moving in really sporadic directions. Up, left, down, up, right. It was always in the view of my window. It did this for hours. Down, right, left, right, up. I really wanted to tell someone, but 1, I didn't want to wake anyone up, and 2, I was too afraid to move. My dog, who was also upstairs, just slept through this whole thing. So at about 5 AM, after watching it do this routine for the past 2 hours, I decided to sleep. I was tired. Now at about 6:45 me woke up to a sound. It sounded like my dog grabbed a toy from his bin and dropped a nillabone on the hardwood floor. Of course, when I looked at him, he was still asleep. So I looked out my window in that area I had last seen the UFO, and it was gone. I didn't think much of it. The sun was rising, and it was beautiful outside for the first of the new year. And then within a blink of an eye, two UFOs passed by my window. They were the classic saucer shape with yellow lights surrounding the rim. They disappeared too fast to see much else. T had nightmares for weeks, and ever since then I have not been able to sleep without my windows being fully covered. I have no idea if they've been back, but that's my experience. Also, I have no idea where the second craft came from. I had only seen the one at 3 AM. TL. Doctor saw a craft at 3 AM and fell asleep 2 hours later. When I woke up at 6:45, 2 crafts went by my window. I occasionally suffer from sleep paralysis. It developed in my early 20s, and I've had the alien abduction dream. My dad and I love to watch shows about aliens, so I'll assume people who claim they were abducted had some form of sleep paralysis. It started with flashes of blue light, and I felt myself being lifted out of bed by the chest. I was blinded by a white light, and I could hear a loud mechanical whirring. When woke up, I was sitting up in bed with my chest stuck out. My arms were holding me up. The experience was the most intense sleep paralysis dream I've ever had. I can see how someone else could have that dream, panic, and tell everyone about it. Recently, my partner and I witnessed everything go black in the middle of the day. As Reddit says, a glitch in the matrix. We were talking in the middle of the afternoon at our dining table in front of a big window, and suddenly it was like blinking. The whole world inside and outside got darker. The lights in the house, the light coming from the window outside. Everything. I blinked rapidly, and it was all normal again. He was doing the same. I forget which one of us asked if it just got real dark everywhere for a half second. And the other one agreed, like, thank God, that wasn't just me, but maybe I wish it was just me. WTF. It was so fast it was almost imperceptible, but it was definitely 1000% real. The house we live in makes audible noisy if the power goes out. We have multiple circuits in that room, so even if one flickered the others would have stayed on. And even if it were power, the window got black too, like nighttime black. It was just real weird. It was like it switched to the middle of the night somehow, and we were talking in the dark, and then it was middle of the day with all the lights on, sun pouring through the window again. And then life went on and nothing came from it. Real weird, man. This happened when I was around 18. I was driving home from work at about 12:30 AM. I live 30 miles away in a pretty rural area. The road that I was on is a lane that goes straight forever. This is farm coast, so a lot of open fields. As I'm driving, I noticed this huge ball of light through my windshield. It looks like hovering over one of the fields. I'm really close to it at this point. I can't explain the feeling of excitement, fear that I felt. The moment had me struck in awe and I pulled over to the side of the road. As I opened M door to get a better look, the bright light turned a bit and I read the words Goodyear. Cranking up the truck, leaving, laughed myself to tears all the way home. My ex and I got into the car one day to head to the store one Saturday afternoon for something or other, I don't remember what. We backed out of the driveway and started down the street. None of the neighbors were outside, which was somewhat unusual for a Saturday. As we passed the house next door, I looked up into the sky and asked what it was I was looking at. He stopped the car, we both got out and stood next to the car looking up into the sky at something that was slowly moving through the air approximately 200 to 500 above, in a controlled manner, not simply being blown by the wind. The object appeared to be a black cylinder, roughly the size of a 55-gallon drum, and covered with something resembling the look of solar cells. At the bottom it had an arrangement that looked like legs, but also resembled the ribs of an umbrella, without the fabric covering, that slowly spread out and then contracted repeatedly. We watched silently for a couple minutes as it continued across the neighborhood. I suddenly had an overwhelming sensation that okay, we are done here, and that we should just get back in the car and go on about our business. Without a word, we got back in the car and continued on, and never mentioned it again. I was a civilian attending a school at an Air Force base in West Texas. There are 10 or so military bases within a 3-hour drive, and many more in the southwest US. One morning, myself and 25 other people were at an outdoor training session at a remote part of the base. We all saw what looked like a solid silver craft the same shape as a hot air balloon. It was close, or large, enough that we were able to tell that it definitely was not a balloon. A red light came out the bottom, circled the craft over the top, then went back in from the bottom. The thing then slowly raised out of view. This was 1998, so no one had cell phone cameras with them, but we were all in agreement that we saw the same thing. The fact that the area has so many military installations, including top secret aircraft bases, means that most likely scenario is that we saw something experimental, although I've been keeping an eye out and there is nothing like that 24 years later. Alright, here we go. Had a dream a few years back. It started off in the kitchen I was working in. Normal routine, but there was an announcement speaker on the wall. It tunes in and notified me that I was to speak with the head manager. I think nothing of it as I descended the stairs into the further levels. I should note that the place that I worked at was already in the basement and was the very bottom of building. There wasn't another floor after that. So, as I enter B2 I walk some scaffold that hung above another one of my old workplaces, a car shop. I get down to the ground floor, and I'm ushered through to the other side. This is where it gets interesting. As I made my way the walls and floors began to change from concrete and flaking paint into a sleek carbon fiber with wires and neon lights. The hallway opened up into what seemed one like a control hub of sorts, with smaller entities working on their computers in separate cubicles. One of them notices me and points to another hall leading to the manager's office. I look down it and see a man in a business suit wave and continue walking. I follow after. At this time the whole scenery had become mechanical and futuristic. I see him enter into another doorway. As I followed behind him it all became clear that I was in way over my head. As the door opened I saw the businessman standing to the side of massive vortex colored different shades of blue and purple.
Run.
There was another man shirtless and ragged on his knees, stuck in a stasis field in front of the vortex. The man began to wither away as the vortex sucked the essence from his body until he laid there lifeless. Then their attention turned to me. I felt my body tense up and held down by some unknown forces. A vortex boomed and it spoke. Is this one soul ready to harvest? The suit walked closer and observed me. No, a few more years. At this moment I finally knew what was happening. I looked at the suit and spoke. Don't play coy, I know you're hiding under that face. I know you're not human. Show me what you really are. He laughed in surprise and said, as you wish. His face cracked open and split apart into a void of energy. It looked like synapses firing and lighting up back and forth. I was in shock and couldn't speak. I wanted to wake up. His face folded back into place, but it was different now. Grey and withered with antennas coming out of the back and hairless scales that covered its head. It asked if there was anything that I would like to know about the universe now that we weren't pretending. I couldn't say anything. I just stared into its eyes and tried to wake up. I did for a few seconds, laying in my bed, but right when I closed my eyes I was back in that room. It was still staring, waiting for a response. I didn't give it one. I couldn't, and woke up after a few more agonizing minutes. I haven't ever had another dream like that since. I hope I never do. Happened a few summers ago, maybe in 2018. I live in Maryland, only a little ways away from DC, so sometimes we do see military planes or things, but this was very weird. We were out on a boat, and I was sitting on a raft reading. I had sunglasses on, and I set my book on my chest. I looked up at the sky and I saw something hovering over the tree line way up in the sky. It was like a black triangle, just frozen, super solid in color and zero movement. I pushed up my sunglasses and it was still there. I felt like I couldn't talk and I just stared at it, and then it just disappeared, like faded away, not moved away. I really don't know why he didn't tell anyone about it. When I saw it, I told my family back on the boat, but none of them saw it. I don't know much about aircraft, so maybe it was just a military thing, but it was literally, in the truest sense of the word, a UFO to me. Damn. And they are among us. And this is all for today's video. I will upload interesting videos 5 times a day. Like and subscribe now, and hit the bell icon to get notified of our daily videos. Thank you for watching. Peace out.